everyone. Welcome to the 5 Steps to Study in the United States presentation. My name is Kelly Villanueva, and for Latin American Students Day with College Week, I will be presenting on the 5 steps to follow to study in the United States. I am an Education USA advisor here in Lima, Peru, and I've had a lot of experience, at least over 3 years, working with different students in my region, and I hope that the advice I'm able to provide in this presentation will be of use to many of you. Welcome. So let's begin. If you're all here and you're all interested in studying in the United States, I guess the big question is why? Well, all of us have our specific reasons, but the four most common that we see in the office are the following. Most American universities, you can definitely see them at the top of many lists internationally in terms of the best academic institutions in the world. So definitely quality is a key reason why students from all over want to study in the United States. We're also talking about institutions that have the best professors from all over the world on campus and developing new research each and every year that is likely being applied in different universities internationally, but that are being housed and developed in the United States. So definitely a lot of quality. Now let's talk about options. Many of the students in Peru, I'm sure the same in your sending countries, don't really know what they want to study, or if they do know, they also have additional interests, but sadly in their country they don't find these options. They're very limited in amount of careers. So when you're talking about the United States, you're talking about over 4,000 institutions of higher education. There's community colleges for 2 years, there's 4-year schools, graduate schools, pretty much any career you can think of, you can pursue in the United States. So definitely a lot of options. There's universities in every state across the entire country, big universities, tiny universities, public universities, and private universities. Universities that are focused on religion and everything else in between. So a ton of options, and that's why you're here. That's why you're interested in studying abroad. Now, if we talk about education, we have to talk about value. Probably the biggest investment you will make in your young lives will begin with the investment in your education. This will begin with undergraduate studies, and then as you develop, it will continue on into your graduate studies. So definitely, like if we compare prices, just the sticker price, American universities may seem a lot more expensive, but the truth is, as you prepare in these formative years in high school and later in your undergraduate school, depending on where you study, you can really bring down the price based on how academically competitive you are, what extra little things your application has, which I will discuss in this presentation. But definitely, if I could say anything about a U.S. education, I studied my undergraduate degree in the States. It's that an American degree literally knows no borders. That is to say, you can take your American degree pretty much to any continent and be confident in knowing that that degree will open many doors for you. Sadly, we cannot say the same from every other country, where if we were to apply it in the US, it might be a little bit more difficult. But definitely consider your American education as a passport to professional opportunities internationally. So that's what I talk about value. And flexibility. As many of you may be young students, you may be future grad students, we don't always know what we want from the get-go. In Peru, many students have to decide at the age of 16 or 17 whether they're going to be future lawyers, doctors, economists. And I don't know about you, but at 16 I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so we have many students who come to our office and tell us that they would like to switch careers, but that in their institution here in Peru, switching means having to go back to zero, and that means a lot more years of study. In the United States, I think over 50% of students in the undergraduate studies change their degree at least once by the time they hit sophomore year. And instead of having to begin at zero, because we start with general courses, students are allowed to change. The system is built on flexibility because they know that the students who are young, we don't always know what we want, and we shouldn't be penalized for not knowing at such a young age. So these are 4 key points that we see once many times in our office, and I'm sure that many of you share. Okay, let's see, moving on to the next one. The 5 steps. Well, I think for all of you who are interested in US study, I'm sure you've gone to Google and found multiple tips of how to begin, how do you condense this process, which may seem pretty intimidating to begin with, but fear not, we've reduced it to 5 steps. The first step is researching your options, and this is where I will begin spending the majority of the presentation talking about the importance of researching your options before jumping and applying to different schools. The next step is completing your application once you've done enough research. The third step is financing your studies and finding all of the tools that are available for you to help pay for your US studies. The fourth step is applying for your student visa. And finally, preparing for your departure and your immersion in a new culture and a new country. So, let's begin with research. When I'm talking about research, what do I mean? Well, first of all, if there are over 4,000 institutions of higher education in the United States, that means you have a ton of options, maybe more options than you have at home. So some of these points may help you in reducing that list of 4,000 to maybe 20, and so on and so forth. Field of study. You may know that you're very good at sciences and at math. Maybe you know you love engineering, and whatever you're going to do, it's going to have that field. So you can definitely begin eliminating universities based on who offers your field of study and who does not. The next key point in your selection of universities is to make sure that your university is accredited. What do I mean by this? Accreditation in the United States can happen in 2 ways. It can be through regional accreditation, which is the most important, I think. In addition to this, accreditation by the Department of Education in the United States. A key website that you should check is CHEA, C-H-E-A, to look up if your university of interest is on that list. If your university is not on that list, please contact any Education USA advisor in the world, in your region, in your country, and ask specifically if the university you're interested in is accredited or not. Why is this important? Like in many of our home countries, there are certain universities that are not accredited, which means that even though we spend a good amount of money and time studying there, when we go abroad, trying to, I don't know, continue our studies in a graduate program, for example, the graduate institution, if it's a US institution, will likely say, you know what, you may seem like a great candidate, but I cannot accept you because your undergraduate degree came from an institution that is unaccredited. So you've just wasted time and a lot of money in a degree that is really of no use to you if your plan is to continue studying. So in our office, we really stress, apart from making sure that your university has what you need, make sure it's an accredited institution. Okay? In addition to this selectivity, we in our office here in Lima receive many great students. The grand majority of them come with their parents and tell us that they would love for their children to study in Yale and Harvard and MIT. Those are probably the first 3 universities we hear. All of these universities are excellent universities, but also in particular these 3, or the 10 most famous that we know, are incredibly selective. So what we do and what we stress in our office is that you understand what selectivity is. There are institutions in the United States that accept, like Harvard, less than 5%, less than 6% of the 100% that apply. That means this many students get in and all of these students don't. And maybe of the students that they're rejecting are students with top scores, first in their class, excellent English. So these schools would be considered highly selective schools. When you begin your research, if you use the College Board, for example, or Princeton Review, there's there are search engines where you can select how selective do I want this system to filter. There are universities like the University of Arizona that I can highlight that accepts literally over 90%, if not 99%, of the students who apply to that institution. Community colleges, if you're interested because your English isn't really that great and you want to take a very private, uh, private setting education, community colleges hardly ever reject students. So as we can see, we have from one extreme top selective universities, medium selective universities that maybe accept, I don't know, between 30 and 50, and universities that accept most students that apply. So depending on what your profile is, which is something that you have to discuss, I highly recommend with an advisor. You know, how good is my English? How good are my grades? What do I do in and out of school? Am I a leader? There are multiple ways for you to evaluate what your profile is, but based on knowing how competitive you are, know and please be calm in knowing that there is definitely a university, if not hundreds of universities, that are specifically looking for your profile. Okay? So selectivity, that's what I'm talking about. Understanding how competitive you are and how competitive the university that you want to go to is. Geographical location. We here who live in South America, I mean, we're relatively close to the US. Many people here are super close and have many friends and family in Florida. But I talk about geographical location in terms of researching your options because if you want to travel back during the holidays to visit your family, and if you're looking at universities in Alaska, in the state of Washington, or the state of Oregon, first of all, climate is going to be very different than Latin America. The closer you are to Canada, the colder and snowier it is. But apart from that, consider being able to fly back home because a ticket from Lima to Florida may be on a good day $500. A ticket from Lima to Juneau, Alaska may be over $1,500. So definitely consider where I want to study and the cost that I'm going to have to invest in flying back over the breaks. Am I going to be able to? I had many friends in my undergraduate studies in Roanoke College who were from Japan and Korea, and they, during vacations, they could not go home because it was extremely costly. So consider those options. International exams. I'm sure you know by now that there are many exams that U.S. universities expect of international students. The top exam being the TOEFL, because we need to know that you're able to speak English for an academic setting. However, there are universities that offer and require SATs and SAT subjects, or GREs and GRE subjects. But the truth is, there are many universities, hundreds even, that do not require entrance exams. So if you know that your English is so so, and you've looked and taken practice tests, whether it be SAT or GRE, and you don't think that it's going to be feasible to get the scores you need, well then consider looking for institutions that only ask for a TOEFL, right? This kind of goes back to selectivity as well. So apart from this, size is also important. In my personal story, when I was in high school, I was a very applied student, but I was also very introverted. I was very shy. And I've always felt that the type of education or the setting that I could be most successful in was a very private setting where I could talk to my professors closely, often, and in case I ever had any question, I always had it resolved directly with my professor. So when I was looking for universities, I was looking for medium to small sized universities. Roanoke College ended up having just about 1,800 students, which is perfect because I've had classes that were less than 20 kids and then eventually just 10 students. So I always had time to talk with my professor. whereas I have friends who went to really big state schools like the Virginia Tech, and they would be in classrooms with 200 students, 300 students in Math 101, and they were able to thrive in those environments because they were very social, very outspoken, very independent people, which is perfectly fine. But you have to know yourself and know what kind of environment you're going to thrive in, and begin your search and filter your search based on those options. Housing options. Probably the number one difference between an American university and an international university, at least those in Latin America, definitely in Peru, is that whereas in Latin America we have a lot of commuter, what do you call it, commuter campuses. I study at my university and then I go home to my parents or to my apartment. In the United States, we're really based on the college campus culture, which is I not only study in a classroom, but I'm involved on campus in clubs and activities. I'm meeting new people. I'm going from dorm to dorm. There's many events. And so think about that. If that's the type of environment that you want, you definitely want to live on a college campus. Please make sure that your university offers housing on campus. I'd say over 85% of American universities do, but some community colleges, for example, don't, and so you need to be sure of that option. Conditional admission. I'll just explain this briefly. Conditional admission is, well, kind of verbatim, being admitted with a condition. That is to say, you may be an excellent student academically speaking, but you may have a weakness in English. So there are some, not all universities, that will accept you because on paper you look like an excellent student, but they know that if you don't meet the minimum English requirement, you're not going to be able to succeed in that institution. So they say, Pedro, I'm accepting you, but I'm requiring you that you take at least one semester of intensive English, and based on how much you improve, you will either continue in the program or you won't. So these are also options that are now available for many universities in terms of international applicants. Tuition and other expenses. This is something that I really want to stress to students for the undergrad and the graduate level, is that I know a lot of us, when we go shopping, for example, we immediately decide our options based on the price. If you compare what it costs to study in your university and what it costs to study in an American university, the prices will vary significantly. But don't be alarmed, because actually, like, I studied in a private university, and yes, the price tag looked scary. But the truth is that universities, especially I can speak of private universities that may cost a lot. If you look up their financial aid website, their financial aid options, you will see that not everyone is paying sticker price, which is the full price. I would say the majority of students do not pay the full price because these types of institutions are really looking for students with merit that can qualify for merit aid based on their academics, their leadership abilities, their, I don't know, high school CVs, etc. There are ways to reduce that price, so don't be alarmed and don't begin your search simply based on what is least expensive for me, because that's really not the best way, at least not the best way to find a US university that will fit your needs. Financial aid. I have yet to receive a student who's come to my office and said, Kelly, financial aid is no problem. I will pay whatever. Help me. That's the first thing we all receive is, I want to study in the US, and if possible, I would like to study at no cost, which happens to some students, but it's a rarity. So what happens is that if you want to study in the US, especially for undergraduate level, you have already begun saving some money. And additionally, you can filter your search based on what universities have a history of offering financial aid to internationals and which ones do not. So even though you may love X university, if they are on their website clearly saying, I'm sorry, but we do not offer financial aid to international students, and you realize that you can only study if you receive money from the institution, then don't worry about it. You have thousands of other options to choose from. But this is also a key component in your search. Do I need money? Yes. Will the university offer me money? No. Therefore, I need to reevaluate my search and find alternative options. Okay, so you've researched. Probably by now, many of you are asking, well, what kind of things, what does the application to a U.S. university look like? Well, we can talk about our applications, which in Latin America tend to be reduced to an entrance exam. Applying to a U.S. university is a little bit more complex because they evaluate many different qualities. The most important for you, if you want to study in the U.S., is that you speak English. And so, all of us, unless we studied at a fully bilingual or American school, we will have to give a TOEFL IBT exam. That being said, the next most important criteria is your academic background. We recently had our Education USA Lima Peru Fair, and while talking with representatives, the number one thing they're all looking for is, especially for high school students, is your high school transcript, tu historial académico, is your carta de presentación. That is to say, what you've done in high school is the clearest reflection of what you will possibly do, what you're capable of doing at my university. So for students who have very, very low scores in high school, and what they're looking for is full aid proposals or scholarships, it's going to be very difficult because they're going to look at your history and say, well, if that's what you achieved in your language, in your country, and now you're going to come to my country, study in English, maybe the academic rigor is going to be a lot higher. What can I expect, right? So definitely, if you're in school now, really, really try to focus on whether it be high school or on your undergraduate studies, trying to get the highest scores you can, right? Standardized exams, like I mentioned, apart from the TOEFL, for undergraduate students, they will ask you for an SAT, possibly, or an ACT, which are both national entrance exams to U.S. universities. For graduate students, it would be the GRE or the GMAT, depending on it, whether it's just a graduate school or a business program. Clarity of purpose. Probably one of the biggest distinctions in applying to a U.S. university versus a Latin American one is that apart from one exam, they really want to get to know your person. And few of us are lucky enough to give interviews with admission officers. Many of us want them, but the truth is there's too many of us and too few of them. So what universities in the United States really focus on, apart from the numbers, is on who you are and why you would be an attractive addition to their campus. This is something that's simply reduced to maybe 500 words, one page if you are an undergrad, or 1500 words if you are a graduate applicant. Essentially, tell me your story. Why would I want to bump into someone like you on my campus? Why are you so special? What do the numbers not tell me about who you are? And if you go back to my Harvard example, there are, like I said, maybe over 25,000 students who are rejected yearly despite having the top numbers, maybe because in their essays that they wrote, they were not the profile or they did not tell the story that the university wanted to hear in terms of a new addition to campus. So I cannot stress enough the importance of presenting yourself with a very honest light, but also being willing to explore what makes you you and why someone like you would be a benefit to a U.S. university. So definitely clarity of purpose is another key component of the college application. Adequate financial resources. Any U.S. university, apart from all of the prior requisites, is going to ask that you talk about your parents' finances, how much you have saved to contribute to your own U.S. application, to your own U.S. education. It's really important to have this clear because the truth is, many students say, well, can't I just study at no cost? We all, depending on our economy, may be able to contribute in some way. You know, there's one thing between needing complete aid and then needing only partial aid, and so many universities require that you fill these applications in order for them to evaluate how much they would need to have in your financial aid package in order for you to be able to study with them. Good health. In the United States, there is no discrimination based on your age, there is no discrimination based on your gender, and you are able to apply to undergraduate programs and graduate programs despite this. Additionally, you may have to take some shots, some vaccinations, maybe like a tetanus shot, before applying, before you're able to fly. But apart from this, there are universities in the United States that specifically cater to students who may be deaf or students who may be blind. There are these options, so like I suggest that you pursue them if you need these special conditions. Alright, let's see. Moving on with the presentation, for undergraduate students, I highly recommend the following 3 pages to help you in your search. Number 1, the College Board. The College Board is the owner of the SAT, the entrance exam to pregrado in the United States. They have a great website where you can create a College Board account and go to something called Big Future, where you're able to put your profile in, the qualities that you really need in your university, and the system will filter your list to give you exactly what you need. And essentially it matches you to the universities that offer precisely what you want. So I highly recommend the college search option of the College Board. Additionally, this year I found a great website called College Prowler. Now, if the college search presents information that universities give to the actual College Board company, College Prowler presents information that is officially obtained from students on campus. So instead of universities talking about universities, on College Prowler you're going to find students talking about their universities. So you can put questions like, what are the best clubs to belong to on X campus? And you will receive replies from students who are studying there and who can give you concrete information about the truth. It's an excellent website, very student friendly, and I highly recommend that if you're curious, for example, how big are the average classrooms? Ask on so and so campus. You will immediately receive a comment from a student who's there who can give you the big picture. So definitely look at the College Prowler. The Princeton Review also does a wonderful job of giving you lists of universities based on your profile, and in addition to this, the Princeton Review also gives you kind of a snapshot of the average student who is admitted into this program. They give you some statistics, which is always helpful in your quest to understand how selective one university is versus how selective another is. So definitely, if you're an undergrad, that is, you're a high school student interested in doing your pregrado in the US, I highly recommend you look into these programs. Now, let's see if we can continue here. Alright, so the second step. The second step would be completing your application. So, you've already completed the first step. Sorry, there's a car alarm in Lima. The first step was researching your options. The second step is completing your application. In theory, by now, you've found a list of universities. It could be 5, it could be 10, that offer the programs that you want, that have the profile that matches your own, and that offer the financial assistance that you need. So with these universities in hand, you can then proceed to completing your application. My best recommendation is that you construct a timeline. Buy yourself a simple calendar, If you have a smartphone, open up your online calendar application and really put on this calendar the following. When are your deadlines? Deadlines for application to the university and deadlines for financial aid applications. Most universities, these applications deadlines may be very different. So if you know you're going to need additional money, you have to be responsible and you have to know what these dates are. In addition to this, we should all be tracking our progress. So we should say, ideally, if I want to apply this year to study in the United States next year, when am I going to take so and so exam? When am I going to begin my preparation for this exam? So the more detailed your calendar is, the better your chances of following through and applying successfully. Um, for all of us in Latin America, when you apply, you're going to have to request from your high schools or from your universities your expediente académico. And if you did not study in an English or bilingual school that can offer you these documents in English, you will also need to consider how long it's going to take to translate them, where you're going to have them officially translated by accredited translators. This can be a little time consuming, especially if we come from public institutions, so please consider that in your timeline. Letters of recommendation. Any application is incomplete if you don't have at least 3 letters of recommendation from teachers in high school or professors in university. So consider, when am I going to approach my teacher and when am I giving that teacher the deadline to submit his letter to me. You cannot ask teachers for recommendations a week ahead of the deadline. The best strategies are plans that are completed at least months in advance. It's always better to be safe than to be sorry. And the same goes with your essays and your statements of purpose for graduate students. A great essay cannot be developed in a week. I highly recommend that in your long-term timeline, you at least give it a month to 3 weeks to craft a good essay that's going to serve as, one, your writing sample, and two, like a written interview of who you are. So these are key things that all calendars that you have should have within them. And I guess the biggest success stories I've had are with students who are very on track with the calendars and the timelines that they set for themselves. These timelines are by no means concrete. They can change, but if you cannot tell me when a deadline is, if you cannot tell me if your recommenders have sent your documents in, you are probably going to apply and have an incomplete application, which sadly in the United States, apart from being a sign of irresponsibility, US universities are very strict, and not many of them are going to call you and say, Pedro, your recommendation letters have not arrived. Your application will simply not be read or be considered. So please, please, please be very responsible and go ahead and buy your calendars or make your calendars. Alright, moving on with this, financing your studies. I think I could probably give a webinar just on this topic because most of us want to study in the United States, but we really have a hard time in finding how we can afford to do this. There are many ways to finance or to help you finance your studies. The better or the more time you have, the longer your timeline is, the more in advance it is, you probably have a better opportunity. For undergraduate students, receiving funding, full funding, at the undergraduate level is very difficult. It's very competitive. So most students, international students that we see who go abroad, do so because they started saving money a little bit each year and because they've looked at alternative sources of funding. For example, the university's website. They've contacted the financial aid office. Maybe there's a special beca for Latin American students. They are looking at websites like Zinch and IEFA, which is right here on the board. And these websites offer not just American university scholarship information, but they also offer information from private institutions. For example, maybe Kellogg's has a scholarship, or Nike has a scholarship. So there are many private institutions that offer small amounts or large amounts of funding, and the more you apply, if you have a resume updated, if you have a scholarship essay already made, these kinds of things that you do ahead of time make finding funding easier. And my number one piece of advice is, if you know that academically speaking, you are not a very competitive student, and therefore you know that the probability of receiving a lot of money from scholarships offered by your university, that you feel as though that probability is relatively low, then apart from giving up in your search, I highly recommend that you look for alternative sources of funding. There are scholarships for everything, for people who sing, for people who write or who make a funny video. And the thing is, if you're on Google, if we're online, might as well put this in the search box too, because it's really relevant for you, and you should not wait to the last minute to consider, well, how am I going to pay for my studies? We have many students every year who are admitted with good financial aid packages, but we also have several students who are admitted, but sadly who are not offered enough money by the university to begin their studies. So the truth is, you have to go into this process thinking, okay, in the best case scenario, I may get a half scholarship, okay? But in the case that I don't, would I still be able to study, or what else do I need to be doing in the meantime to be able to increase my chances? So what you can be doing now is researching. All right. So, um, apart from researching for financial aid, which I just want to say one last thing about that, many universities, when you complete your application, when you have all of your documents in line, um, they will then tell you, I guess, between the months of March and April, whether you've been admitted to the university or not. Therefore, you will receive financial aid packages upon your response of whether you will go to the university that has admitted you. Now, for those of you who, apart from filing your college application, are also sending in scholarship applications, the university will be very vocal in telling you this is what you qualify for. So let's say deadlines usually begin late November, and they usually close mid-February. And like I said, results come out late March, April. The truth is that when you receive your results, if you're applying to, I normally suggest at least 4 to 5 institutions, and you receive your results, you are the student, you are the final person who decides what offer is best for you. Many students come to this decision based on which university is going to offer me the most financial assistance, which is a logical response, right? But you are in the end the one who selects where you go and what you can afford. So the next thing, apart from receiving confirmation from your university that you've been admitted and you have confirmed with them that you will go, uh, next comes the application process for a student visa. In order to apply to a student visa, this could be here in Peru or anywhere in Latin America, anywhere in the world, you will have to receive an I-20, which is an official document from your U.S. institution saying that I, the University of Kentucky, am admitting Kelly Villanueva to begin her graduate studies in education. Without that document, which is going to detail how much my program costs, how much my housing costs, how much additional expenses could be, without their official document saying that I've been admitted, I cannot ask for a meeting with a consul. So please make sure you have this document, and when you receive it, protect it and guard it with your life, because it is essentially your key to your U.S. higher education. After you get this document, you will be able to fill out the online visa application at your local US consulate. All of these applications are online. Um, most non-immigrant student visa applications will require several documents. Among them could be your admission letter, definitely a bank letter showing that you have certain finances to contribute to your education. Maybe they would ask you for your your high school grades or your undergraduate grades. It varies, but truth is the most important is one, your I-20, and two is a document called SEVIS. Think of SEVIS as a payment that you make to be part of the official, I don't know, immigration system in the United States. It's kind of a way to track you. So when you go to your consulate or consular interview, you will need to bring your I-20, a receipt that you have paid your SEVIS fee. In addition to this, maybe a bank statement or a letter from certain sponsors who are willing and who are able to pay for your studies, or who will abide that they will be able to fund your studies at least for the first year. For all of the students that I've worked with, the number one thing has been if you can prove that you have your finances for your first year of study and that you have a very responsible plan or idea of how you will be able to fund your later years of study, everything should go well. Most consular officers that I've talked to have told me that the student visa application and student visa admission rates are very, very high internationally. I think it's over 70% are approved. And like I said, if you have these documents in order, if you can prove in 2 to 3 minutes that you know where you're going, why you're going, and that you're able to fund this education, whether through scholarships from your university or from your savings, and that you have a very great reason and motivation to come back to your country to use and share your knowledge, you should really not have a problem. US consular officers really want to have more international students in the US, and they want to send many US students to international countries. Recently, in 2011, President Obama launched a 100K, 100,000 initiative, which was to send 100,000 American students abroad and to have 100,000 Latin American students go to the US. So you, if you're being part of this presentation, we are in a very great situation because US universities are knocking at our door, coming to our countries, whether it be through fairs or through webinars, because they are really looking for your profile. Because I guess the histories that we have, the cultures and traditions that are unique to our region, are things that they view as assets to the diversification of their college campuses and campus life. And so, if you are to go abroad, you would become an ambassador of the region, an ambassador of your country, and this is why many universities are here in Latin America now, because the truth is, I think that of the international student population now in the US, the grand majority are coming from Asian countries. We have many from China, Korea, India, Saudi Arabia, but you don't have as high numbers from Latin America. So you are in a very good moment in time to be able to complete and to begin your U.S. studies because universities are looking for you. So I really hope that through this five-stage process, you will be able to acquire tools and knowledge to apply successfully and to be able to begin your studies abroad. So after you get going back to the visa, I'm sorry. After you get your appointment and you go to the consular officer, you present your documents, you will be told within that short period whether your visa has been approved or not, and you will have your visa and passport sent back to your, whether it be home or place to pick up. And then you need to prepare for the fifth step in this process, which is preparing to leave. preparing for your departure to a new country and to a brand new culture. Um, in Peru, with our work with the Fulbright Commission, every year we have a pre-departure workshop, which essentially is a student orientation for Peruvian students that are going abroad to U.S. universities. Within these orientations, which all Education USA centers, I'm sure all Fulbright centers in Latin America that they run and they sponsor, you will meet students who, just like you, began their application process a couple of years ago, who are now part of the U.S. higher education system, who are back in your country and who can give you some tips, some advice, some suggestions of how to make your transition from Latin America to the US a successful one. So definitely keep your eyes and ears out for these pre-departure workshops. The ones in Peru are completely free. You just have to tell them that you, one, would like to participate, and two, you have your I-20 ready to go, and you will be invited and be able to meet other students from your country who are also flying out to begin their US studies this year. Apart from going to a pre-departure orientation, which is highly important, you have to also be very vocal and communicate actively with the university that you will be going to. That is to say, make sure you have your housing secured before flying and arriving on campus. It may sound funny, but oftentimes there are students who say, "Well, I've been admitted, I've been to my pre-departure, but I was supposed to contact who?" You're supposed to contact the housing department and to make sure that you have a dorm waiting for you, or you have someone, whether it be a professor or a host family, who will be receiving you. These are little details that, truth is, although they're small, can really make or break your experience, at least in the first few months. Make sure before you fly you have all of the documents you need translated. If you can translate and have everything you need, your I-20, your insurance records, your insurance agreements with your health institutions, if you have all of that set, it makes transition much easier than if you get to your US university and you forgot things. So definitely that's why communication between you and the international admissions department of your university is very important. In addition to this, one of the number one tips I get from my students to share with other international students is that when you have your tickets bought, when you have all of your luggage made, please be sure that before you fly, you contact the International Admissions Office telling them, "I will be arriving from so and so plane at so and so time at this place. Please, if possible, could you send someone to escort me to campus?" All US universities would love to be able to help you, but they cannot help you unless you communicate that you will be arriving at a specific date, in a specific place, at a specific time. So definitely use the tools that are available to you and communicate your needs very actively with your international admissions department, because they are there to cater to your needs. They've done this for many years, and just know that you're going into good hands. And so finally, probably of this entire process, one of the most emotional processes is, apart from hearing the success stories of our students, is having them come by our office to say thanks. For all of you who are applying, I know many of you are brilliant students. You wouldn't be considering a U.S. education if you weren't. Know that in this process you're not alone. Education USA, along with many friends, many high school counselors, if you're fortunate enough to have them, we really want to help you do the best application you can. And so, at least Education USA wise, I can speak because I'm an advisor. There's over 400 advisors in the world. There are Education USA centers in every country. If you're Latin American, I've met Education USA advisors everywhere. So please reach out to Education USA and their advisors and their local offices to first explain that you are interested in this process, and if at any point you need assistance, whether it be in researching schools, helping you find scholarship possibilities, communicating with the US university on your behalf. You need to ask for help from people who know the process and people who are working with the US State Department, because we're going to give you official information, correct information, unbiased information. That being said, this process is most successful for students who do not begin 2 weeks in advance, but rather, ideally, if you're in high school, the earlier you know about this process, the better, because you have more time to fix things. If you are an undergraduate student, same thing goes. On minimum, we recommend at least a year in advance to plan to create your timelines. 6 months can also be doable, but honestly, less than 2 months to apply to a university and to fulfill all of the requirements that are needed is really difficult. So don't worry, there is no penalty if you take a year off after you finish high school to figure out what you want to do, how to improve your English, how to better your application. Do so. It's no rush to begin your US college education. My suggestion is that you create the best application possible, and if that requires more time, that is okay. So finally, I just want to thank everyone here for participating in this wonderful webinar with College Week. As Latin American students, I am thrilled to know that so many of you are interested in studying abroad, and I really hope that these 5 steps will help you become independent students, but at the same time very educated students when it comes to beginning and completing your college application process. Now, before I take some questions that I've already seen here, I wanted to thank you all and to invite you to our Education USA Lima Peru page, which is one that I run. It's on Facebook, and for all international students, actually, I make sure to put there weekly articles to help you in your college search, college essay, TOEFL prep, SAT prep, GRE prep, graduate school essays, how do you create great recommendation letters with your recommenders, a little bit of everything. So definitely, if you're interested, if you hit like, you will receive daily information on scholarships or interesting articles all relating to US higher education. And now, before the conclusion of this webinar, I will try to answer some of the questions we've received. Let's see. Yes, College Search for Daniela Gomez. College Search is in particular excellent for undergraduate students to begin researching their college schools. However, for graduate students, my recommendation is 1. Peterson's Graduate Search, 2. Princeton Review Graduate Search, and also gradschools.com as the top 3 ways to research graduate programs. I have a question from Juan Molina. Do you know where I can find universities with not a too high, I'm guessing, TOEFL level? Yes. Usually, if, like I said, when you go to these websites to filter universities based on selectivity, for example, the College Board, the college search option, if a university admits, let's say, 65-80% of their students, the likelihood is that if they will admit international students, the English requirements are not going to be so high. That's how I match this. The super competitive schools can say, I would like a student to apply with a near perfect level of English. But if there is a university that accepts over 50, over 90% of everyone who applies, that institution, apart from being a great institution if it's accredited, is an institution that will likely be able to require a lower TOEFL grade because they will recommend that you begin with Center of English Studies program, an ESOL program, to reinforce your English before you begin your studies. So there you go, answering that question. And apart from this, I've also received questions about if you can do certificate studies in the US. Absolutely. In the US, you can get anything from an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctoral degree, master's diploma, short term courses. There's literally a little bit of everything, depending on what you need. So, the number one thing is before you begin any type of process, is to have a real, personal, introspective evaluation of what you really want, why you really want to study abroad, and what do you really want to study. The more certain you are of what you really want to do, the much easier this process is going to become. Especially for graduate students, where you really, if you're applying to a program, you can't be unsure of why. Undergraduates have the liberty to do so because there are so many options. But graduate programs are very specific. Therefore, the more you know why you want it, the easier it will be for you to convince the graduate admissions committee of why you deserve to go and begin their program on their campus. So, let's see. If you have any other questions, I will gladly receive them. Early admissions. I think I just got a question from Education Advising Center. Yes, if you're a student who has been doing this process, have already begun this process, and you know that there is, let's say, one university, Duke University, that you're in love with, that you know that's your first choice school, you have all of your exams done, all of your expedientes académicos translated, all of your recommendations, you have everything done, and you have everything early. There are certain ways to apply to universities because you are ready early. This is called early admission, early decision programs. There are programs in the US that will tell you sooner than other students because you're applying earlier, whether you have been admitted or not. And there are universities that have requirements. For example, if you apply early decision, you are saying to the university, you know, I don't care if other universities accept me, you are my first choice, and if you say yes to me, I will say no to everybody else. So, early admissions would be an excellent option, one, for students who have all of their paperwork, all of their applications done early, and who are for sure selective of one institution that they really want to go to, or two, for students who, like I said, have everything early, but at the same time, they know that financial assistance is more probable if you apply earlier because less money has been distributed, and therefore it's also an excellent option to increase your scholarship possibilities. Now, I just want to highlight this. Even though you're applying early, which is great because you have everything done early, that does not mean you have rushed through the entire process just to complete an early deadline. Just because you finish something really super fast does not mean that it's been done or completed super well. So please, between early decision and regular decision, work with whatever decision allows you to create and present the best application for you and for that university. I have my last question with Jorge Moreno. Are there scholarships for people with chronic illnesses? Chronic illnesses. Yes, I believe this is possible. I have not had the opportunity to research this with an actual student of mine, but I welcome you to look this up, whether it be on Zinch, whether it be on FastWeb, or IEFA. Definitely with institutions that do this kind of research, you will be likely to find success in finding support for students in your condition. So, just to wrap up, everyone, I really want to appreciate everyone who's logged on. We have a lot of participants, and I wish you the best of luck in your college applications. Like I said, Education USA is probably an excellent point to begin your search, and contact any Education USA office in your home country to find help, assistance, and answers to many questions that you may still have. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully we'll see you again. Goodbye.